Hello! Today's review is for a ready-to-fly quad, and would you believe that this is it here in this little bag? I didn't believe it when I first saw it, and I thought, they forgot to put the quad in. But if we take it out the bag, which admittedly could be slightly easier to get out, we get this. It's a little folded up 4-inch quad. And this is the DarwinFPV FoldApe 4, and it was supplied for review by Banggood, so many thanks to them. And I thought, this is cool, because I love being able to travel around with, you know, quads that can do some distance. Normally when you put a small quad in, it's kind of limited, but I looked up about what this is supposed to fly with, and it says like with a 1000 milliamp hour 3S, you expect 16 minutes, you could put a 3000 milliamp hour light ion pack and it should do half an hour. Got a GPS in the back, so one expects if you went far, you should be able to use return to home, that sort of thing, and it's supposed to be very efficient. I'll show you what's in the box and then we'll go in a close-up with it, but aside from this that it comes in, you get some stickers, you get a screwdriver and a bunch of spare screws, cable ties, this looks like antenna holders and the little bits that go on top. I guess if you're going to do that, then you have to be prepared to sort of maybe lose your foldability to an extent there. And then we've got something to get your instructions and a battery strap. Let's go and check this out in a bit more detail up close, and we'll see how it all works. I'm absolutely fascinated and looking forward to seeing exactly how this works. Okay, so we got all the stuff out. I'll go through it quite quick because you've already seen it. The manual's actually pretty good. It's got some links about where to get the firmware if you don't install it. It's got bits and bobs about which screws go where, describes all the spares and stuff and how to set up the LRS, sticker sheets, you know, just that. I noticed it had these screws and then another bag of these screws here. These screws are the most important one. I've got two out here along with the screwdriver. They give you more about that in a second, and just pouch and the battery strap. So how's the magic work? What's it do? Well, essentially you just kind of do that. You'll notice if you look at the back, there's these two plates that kind of come together like so, and ditto at the front like that, which then looks like this, and then you can just grab this, slot it into there, and you are good to go. And what we've got here as well is we've got a bit of antenna tube here that we can stick in there and have that sort of sitting up nicely. Now in the back, or on the underneath, you'll notice just here and here we've got two little things that say screwdriver, and this is why I've got these out. These are, it said M3x10s, these are M2x10s, and that is the correct size, so the manual's not quite right there. If we basically get that in, do that up, it goes down to some sort of threaded hole at the other side. That's nice and strong, and then we do the same with this section here. First time you do this, it will probably take a little while to align, but once that's in, those legs are pretty secure and are not going anywhere. So this is a 3S quad. As said, it actually talks about using like a 3000 milliamp hour light ion setup, which would just about fit there. I'm thinking for me, I could use a 1300 3S, and I have to use a sort of converter. It is an SPI ELRS receiver, which means ELRS is dependent upon the version of Betaflight. It does have its own antenna here. This is not the best antenna, but that would be easy to upgrade. There's a UFL connector down here. Obviously it's got a nice long VTX antenna that will keep it away from stuff. In the front here you've got a Calyx ant camera, which I've used before and I found them to be pretty good. And you've got these interesting little folding props, which are something a little bit different. I've not used them before. I don't know how efficient they are. Generally speaking, a 2-blade propeller is more efficient than a 3 or more blades. I generally find that 2 blades sort of don't hold the air as well in a turn as a 3 blade. They kind of drift, depend on your flying style. There's actually quite a lot of room in this stack. You'll see the VTX attached to the top, and everything else is in this all-in-one board there. So yeah, that looks good so far. I'm going to basically get it on Betaflight, see what's set up, get the radio bound up. Just need to change the binding phrase for that one, and yeah, then we can take it out for a proper fly. Seems to have got a bit, this camera holder got a bit like bent, but it's TPU, so shouldn't be any big deal. Anyway, let's get on bead flight. Hello, if you can hear me. It started off when I was at home being very, very calm, and since I've got here, which, you know, we're on an island, so we're surrounded by the sea, it's very, very windy. So if it's just wind noise, I'll subtitle this. We're here with a little DarwinFPV FoldApe. What I've got is a little adapter for an XT60 on there, so I can put some little 1300 3S's on, and we're going to test it out. I'm joined by my pals the cows, who are going to spectate and comment about my performance. And the only thing I'm worried about for a little quad, I don't know if you can see, these trees are really moving around. It is really quite windy, it's really gusty. So, you know, we hope, and we'll see how it goes. It didn't start off very well. This is my first DVR, and you will notice the beginning and the end is there, but the middle is missing. I think I managed to basically turn it off, and then when I came back to land, I thought I was turning it off, and of course I was just turning it back on again, so I got nothing. I just did a very basic flight of about 10 minutes with my 1300 3S, but I managed to capture the second flight where I decided to try and get, you know, a kilometre. In the previous flight, I'd just flown around mostly in this sort of first field, but I tested out rescue mode, and that pointed me in the right direction and started coming back. I was a little bit worried about this though, because we're going up higher and it's a bit windy, and already the balance lead, you can just see in the top corner there, has managed to come unwound from the battery. Normally I wind this round the XT60 lead just to make sure it doesn't do anything bad, like get caught in the props and stuff, but this one had come loose. Anyway, we're not doing too bad on this one. As you can see, that the speed is quite low. We're managing sort of 20 kilometers ish an hour, which is pretty slow, but I'm also keeping a very careful eye on my DBM RSSI value, because as I mentioned, this is an SPI receiver. Once again, I've managed to forget to put my ELRS power up there. I normally use dynamic power, and so this should be stepping up the power on the radio if it gets at sort of a low signal, but because I'm not showing that, I can't be sure exactly what it was doing. I made this mistake on another quad, and I have to go back and sort it all again. It's a little bit dodgy, I'm thinking. The LQ's jumping around a little bit, and the DBM's not do too bad. I was mostly worried about this just falling out of the sky. I'd also had a weird issue in the previous flight where you can see we've got 23 sats, seem to get the sats fine, have no problem there at all. And then at some point it suddenly said nothing. And it's not like it dropped to no stats, it's just like it thought there wasn't a GPS receiver anymore. So a little bit wary about that. But I thought I'd carry on and see what happens. I was reasonably confident that the VTX is good enough and the control signal looks good enough at least to turn this round and get this back home. This is glacially slow now. You see 15 kilometers an hour, that's less than, I think that's about 10 miles an hour, isn't it? That's really slow. You know, you could have a jog here, and we're at -97, so I'm not going to do all the way to the sea. It's just like, let's see if we can just get a kilometre, and then we'll turn it on round and come on back, because it's looking not great on the signal, quite frankly. We're going up. Are we going to make it? Yay! Made it. So we'll do the turn, and I'm expecting the signal to get the worst of the turn yet, up to -103, which is, I don't ever want to see it in triple figures in that DVM RSSI bit. A bit worried about the balance lead again here, because now we're doing 90 odd kilometers an hour. That's more likely to sort of go off and do things. Whilst I can see it, I know where it is, and I know the props aren't hitting at anything. Rest of the quad, I mean, it's very windy and it's a very small quad, and it does actually seem to handle it reasonably good. It feels reasonably smooth despite this amount of wind, and it flies around pretty nicely. It's not what I'd call, freestyle type quad. The idea is it's kind of light and used for distance, but it's handling the conditions much better than I thought it would. Now at this point I kind of hear this rat-a-tat-tat noise, and you can just see a little bit of a little glitch there it had, and this is the balance lead actually hitting that prop. So at this point I decided to bring it down and I'll sort that balance lead out properly. You can see it's disappeared from view now. This is because it's dangling over the props, and that's never a good idea, is it? So let's bring this thing in and we'll sort it out. So I've just sorted that out and chucked it back on the mat, and you can see rescue is off, and it's not like we've got no sats. This is an indication that we've got no GPS, and the fact I gave a little throw on there makes me think that perhaps we've got some sort of loose wire situation or something like that, as it's a little bit sus that it happened with that. I just want to do some very sort of light acro here just to make sure it performs how I would expect it to. So that was a little dive, no problem doing a dive, little roll, and I think we do a couple of flips as well just to make sure it actually works. Again, yeah, it's handling fine. I wouldn't ever put this in sort of hardcore freestyle thing. It's just not built for that. But it's okay on the power, despite it being a little freest quad. It doesn't feel heavy or sluggish. It feels pretty good. Camera wise and VTX wise, VTX working pretty good. As you can see, this is running at 600 milliwatts, so you'd kind of expect it to be. Camera is the ant, and it's a fairly good camera for something very, very small. But my goodness, does it oversaturate here? I mean, I'm sure we could go in and mess about, but we've got a very weird sky, and the grass is just too green, so I don't think the colours are particularly good. But I guess you wouldn't be using this really to say, hey look, I've got some great footage on my DVR here and you can watch it. I'm only doing this to show you guys what it looks like from the pilot's perspective, of course. One thing it's got is that little mounting point that you could put a naked GoPro on, or something like a Runcam thumb or something along those lines, and I think that would work quite well. You'll see that the GPS has come back, but we haven't got a home position because we didn't arm it with the GPS on, and it's definitely not losing satellites, because when it comes back it's like I've got 25 satellites. It's kind of like they were there all the time, but it's like the communication's just gone away. Yeah, and I just flew this around. Now I think I said at the intro that it said like 1,000 milliamp hour 3S could do sort of 16 minutes. I was getting a comfortable 10 minutes and landing at like 3.5 something, and that seemed fine to me. I should mention that my 1.3 amp batteries are about 9 years old, so not the best. So if you want to get the best out of this, I guess new batteries or a lithium ion pack. But getting 10 minutes out of a quad where you're not taking it easy and you're just flying around anyway is fairly good. And I've got a lot of old 1300 3Ss left, because that's how I used to fly my original 5-inch quads, and that did feel sluggish. So this feels a lot lighter and agile in comparison. You would have noticed we lost the satellites again, and the GPS goes completely, and it's back again here, and I think at some point just in here it disappears again. This is me just coming in for a landing. As you can see, I'm 10 minutes in and my average cell voltage is around about 3.5, a little bit more. That is my sort of comfort level of landing. Of course we could go a little bit further and squeeze out maybe 3-4 more minutes from it if we really want to put our batteries down to 3.3. Yep, the sats have come back again and they've gone again. Yeah, it's weird. That definitely needs to be looked at, but that is battery number 2, just checking it out and things. Now in my next battery I stood up and thought I'll get a better signal this way, and we'll just make sure we can get out a little bit further. But I found the conditions had worsened. The level of wind had picked up, and I was getting these quite nasty vibrations going out there where the quad was sort of shaking around and the speed was dropping off even further. And I thought, I don't think this is really worth it, because it's just struggling too much to go. It's just not really going anywhere and just shaking about. So I had to abort that. It's something I can come back to obviously, but you can sort of see the shaking here. The wind up there is just not very happy. If you think it's windy on the ground, get up 50 metres and it's like 10 times worse basically. So pretty much I just flew around some more. And there's not anything particularly interesting to show here. I just sort of flew around and had a bit of a fun time. I made sure I could, go where I wanted to, whether it was by the side of me or behind me. Went up a bit higher just so I could do a bit of a look around and then dived quickly because I was like, have I been blown off course horrifically or is this okay? As you can see, it just handles everything fine. Aside from that wind that was really knocking it around, put it into a dive, put it into some light acro, and it's absolutely fine. Yeah, so essentially I spent another 10 minutes just flying around the field and finding things to go under, much like I do with all quads, because that's the fun thing to do essentially. And as I said, this handles nicely. It doesn't particularly feel like it's super slow. Obviously it doesn't feel like it's super fast either because it's only on 3S. But it is a nice little lightweight quad which seems to get a good 10 minutes out of old nasty knackered batteries, so that can't be too bad. Again, we're coming in just above 3.5 per cell and we're at sort of 10.5 minutes. So yeah, I like it for the efficiency and something to do with these old batteries I've got. Well, I've taken this apart looking for problems, and although this is a little wonky in the soldering, I don't seem to be able to force any problems. I've been wiggling this around, I've been looking at the solder bit, I've been shaking it. Basically, although that little GPS thing there is red, the fact it's there at all means it's connecting, and I've had like little sats coming in and out here, but in the house it's not as likely, so I can't make it fail, which is weird. So I'm not sure what was going on, other than the fact perhaps me taking it out and reseating the pins and everything has sorted it out, but I don't know. The other thing to note on this is, of course, we could upgrade the antenna because it's just a UFL. Also, we've got a couple of pads here for T1R1 which is spare, and that coincides here, so that's actually a spare UART, so we could have an external receiver. I guess it's just a case of they've saved money by bundling it on the board and using SPI ones, so there are options there. Well, I really like the concept of this and I'm liking the way it flies, but I can't ignore the fact that the GPS keeps spazzing out for some reason, and I really can't find an issue with it. I was poking it and prodding it and holding it around and all sorts. I could never get that GPS thing to disappear. Of course, if I unplug it, it would go away. So it's a bit weird to think about what's happening. Maybe I've fixed it just by, as you do, sometimes you take things apart and put them back together. Perhaps something that was caught or tight or something that was there has loosened or whatever, and that's going to work again. So I'll go back and fly it some more in another video, because I want to try putting a camera on the front. Maybe it's something like a run cam thumb. We might experiment with changing the antenna out. I've just added the ELRS power on the OSD so I can double check that's working, because when it was going to like -95, I want to know that my modular said we may go to a watt. It's getting like bad out there, so I don't know if that's happening. If I can test it and it gets to kilometre and it's at a watt, then the thing to do obviously is to try swapping the antenna to see if that makes it better. But we've also got the option of ignoring the SPI receiver and putting a proper receiver in with a proper antenna, and there's even the little hole here so you can put the little 2.4 for it. So that'll be coming up in the future, but concept wise I like it. You've obviously got to think about the fact that you have a screwdriver and you need to take it apart. When I took it to the field, I actually piggybacked this on another quad on my backpack because it was just much easier than messing around with screws. So it's easy to fold down and put back up again, but not something I'd necessarily want to do out in the field. Great for transporting, but if you want to quickly transform it, I don't think it's a quick thing. It's like a little bit fiddly. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope that's been helpful. This was kindly supplied by Banggood for review, so thanks to them, and of course you find links down below if you want to check it out in more detail, and I will be back soon with more from this. Hopefully the GPS will work. It appears that when I was messing around with it, I managed to dislodge this prop holder, and now I have to go and find that. Anyway, that'll be the next video. In the meantime, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now. Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.